Rob Luce, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate the opportunity.
So anyway, I got a press release a couple of weeks back, which we published, that shows that you guys are getting $6 million, I believe, from the MEDC. Is that right?
From the state of Michigan. It's an appropriation through the school aid budget.
Okay. And so with that $6 million, you're going to do exactly what?
We are going to expand our SME Prime program to 17 new high schools across the state of Michigan. SME Prime is the signature program of the SME Education Foundation. It's an acronym. It stands for Partnership, Response, and Manufacturing Education. But essentially what we do with Prime is we build manufacturing and engineering programs inside of high schools across the country. We are in 17 schools in the state of Michigan currently, but with the state funding, we will be able to double that number and have over 30, almost 40 Prime schools in the state.
Wow. All right. So let's talk a little bit about that. So as a Prime school, then, I mean, obviously the focus is on manufacturing skills, but more specifically, what would those skills be?
Well, it depends. There are a lot of different pathways that align with the umbrella term of advanced manufacturing. But we teach everything from additive manufacturing, 3D printing to CAD/CAM, mechatronics and robotics. There's a welding pathway, machining and fabrication. All of the skill sets that you might think of when you think advanced manufacturing are taught via the Prime program.
Okay, and so let's address that issue. I mean, I worked my way through college by working at an auto supplier. So, I mean, I have 3 years of factory experience. And of course, that was a long time ago when we rode dinosaurs. So back then, it was not a pleasant place to work. But modern factories today are almost like clean rooms, and I mean, they're high tech. I mean, it's a whole different transformation from, say, 40 years ago, right?
You got it. And that's the message that we're trying to instill into these students, that it's not your father's or your grandfather's manufacturing industry anymore, that it's not dirty and dark and dying, that it's actually clean, quite high tech, and you can make a lot of money doing it.
Yeah. So what's been the reception of students towards that idea? I know, and we could talk also about, there's got to be a ton of openings right now, but let's talk about students first. I mean, are they receptive to that message?
They are. In fact, every year we survey our Prime students across the country, not just in the state of Michigan, and found that last year, despite the pandemic, so what was the 2020-2021 academic year, 89% of the students that had gone through a Prime program, graduating students, were in fact pursuing a manufacturing career post-high school, either by pursuing a post-secondary education in the manufacturing or engineering space, or by directly entering the workforce. So we feel that we're having an impact and making a very relevant imprint in society.
Well, it used to be that the trade unions had these apprenticeship programs that essentially taught people how to do all these things. Mm-hmm. And then with the demise of the trade unions, and they used to have the MTech programs out there, and I think that's kind of fallen a bit by the wayside. So that's been leading to the problem that we have this really large number of openings in the manufacturing sector, right?
That's unfortunate. There's been a disinvestment in vocational ed over the past 30, 40 years. And that's why industry is starving for talent like they are. There are currently 500,000 jobs nationwide open in manufacturing, and that number stands to increase by a factor of 5 by the end of the decade. 2.5 million unfilled manufacturing jobs. Just think about the impact that stands to have on our national economy. It's a big problem. It's a problem that everyone has seen coming for a long time. And there are a lot of organizations doing a lot of good things to help solve that problem. And we feel like Prime is one of them. And obviously the state of Michigan agreed.
So the Prime program now, it's for instance, when you do a traditional college degree, it's 4 years, 5 years, depending on how long it takes you to get through it. And I know particularly in the technology space, since that's where I'm at, is what you learn as a freshman by the time you're a senior is obsolete. Yeah. So the Prime program, then, is it more vocational, like 6 months or a year and a half? And you
So our Prime program comes, first of all, it comes complete with equipment and curriculum that are aligned with certifications. There's a professional development component for the teachers to ensure that they are certified on a particular manufacturing process or a piece of equipment so that they can certify their students in the classroom. We provide dollars for extracurricular activities as it relates to STEM education. We provide scholarship dollars for the students, but specifically regarding the chronology of the plan, to your point, Prime is designed to be taught marking period by marking period, semester by semester, freshman through senior year. And the idea is that the senior is in a position to participate in a capstone project by his or her senior year and graduate with a skill set and oftentimes an industry recognized credential or 2 or 3 that manufacturers in their communities are in desperate need of. And that's the differentiating factor of Prime. It is designed to meet the needs of the local manufacturing community. We're in 60 plus high schools across the country in 22 different states, and not one of those programs is the same. Prime has never been, never will be an off-the-shelf, out-of-the-box program. Every program is tailored to meet the needs of the local manufacturing community.
Is there any way to give specifics, like an example here in Michigan of how you worked with a high school and a manufacturer to craft that program? Can you give me any kind of input on that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, another program that was funded with state dollars up in the Saginaw area, it's a 7-school program, 6 high schools in their career tech center. And we engage the Great Lakes Bay Manufacturing Association to identify for us, help us identify what are the skill sets that they're looking for, what are the technologies that they're utilizing in their facilities, what equipment manufacturers do they have in their facilities, and then based on that information, we customize a tailored curriculum plan that's delivered to the teachers for in-classroom instruction. And that curriculum plan, once again, is aligned with the local manufacturing need. It's not a cookie cutter program. It's designed to meet the needs of local manufacturers. The idea being that the kids graduate with a skill set and a certification that Bob's Tool and Die down the street is in desperate need of.
So in a sense, it's vocational training at the high school level then, right?
Absolutely.
And Mr. Matt has finally joined us here. I'm sure that LTU tied him up this morning. So you've come in late. We're talking to Rob Luce, the executive director of the SME Foundation, and they've gotten a $6 million grant from the state to expand their Prime program into high schools, which, as you just heard, is a vocational training for manufacturers. So go ahead, Matt.
Well, I'm still booting up my computer. I actually had today off and turned on my computer at 1:50 p.m. and it took fully 18 minutes for it to boot up and get me into this meeting. So yay, Microsoft. So you go ahead and ask the next question. I'll pick up in just a minute.
All right. So then do high schools apply to participate with you folks, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's a good question. So typically, Mike, the way this works is high schools inquire as to whether or not they can be a successful Prime program. There's a process by which we evaluate the likelihood of that happening. And if we agree, if the foundation agrees that that school is a good candidate, we go about fundraising for that program. Every Prime program costs roughly $350,000, and the SME Education Foundation raises the money for that school. So the school's not on the hook for any cash whatsoever.
Huh.
With the state appropriation, it's a little bit different because we've already got the money in the bank, so to speak. So the way we're approaching this particular project is we're asking schools across the state of Michigan to apply if they would like to be considered for a Prime program utilizing this funding from the state of Michigan. And based on the responses that we receive, we will evaluate those schools that are most likely to be successful and make the decision at that time.
So forgive me if you've already answered this question, but how many schools in Michigan do you have signed up for this program now?
Currently, we have 17 Prime schools, and the state appropriation funding will allow us to double that number and expand to another 17.
Huh.
Do you find that a lot of schools still have, stuff like, metal shop, basic CNC machining, that kind of thing, or has a lot of that stuff gone by the wayside at the high school level? I know when I was a kid a million years ago, most schools had that stuff.
It's a good question, Matt. It goes both ways. You'd be surprised. A lot of times we find high schools that have nothing in place, And the prime program would be developing a manufacturing program, a vocational ed program from the ground up. In other instances, we find schools that have amazing facilities with equipment that would rival manufacturers in their communities. And prime, more than developing a program, is coming in to enhance what's already on the ground.
Okay, so coming down the last few minutes. So if some high school folks are watching this, either live or on demand, and want to apply, how would they do that?
Thank you for asking. They can go to SMEEF.org, SMEEF, SMEEF.org, and it'll be pretty self-explanatory. You can apply to become an SME Prime program. There are a number of questions that we ask you about your school and your demographics and your student population, what you may have on site, what you might be looking for. Based on that information, that school's situation will be compared against other schools in the state. And we hope to make a decision on all 17 schools by the end of next month. The state's fiscal year starts October 1. So we want to have all 17 schools identified by September 30th.
Matt?
Okay. So once again, if people want more information, it's smeef.org. And I see here that prime schools have been initiated in 63 communities across 22 states. Michigan being a manufacturing state, I would imagine we must be pretty close to the top of that in terms of prime schools.
Currently, our largest footprint is in the state of Michigan, and that will obviously be the case with an additional 17 schools.
Mm-hmm. And is it weighted towards a particular region of the state? Obviously, the half the population is down here in Southeast Michigan. I don't know if half the manufacturers are, but is it spread out around the state?
Actually, almost 50% of our prime schools in the state right now are in the Saginaw area.
Huh.
The program I mentioned earlier that was funded by the state of Michigan a couple of years back via their Marshall Plan for Talent dollars. But we do have a few schools in Southeast Michigan, a couple schools on the west side of the state, and 2 schools up in the Mount Pleasant, Gratiot, Isabella area.
Okay.
All right. So what other kinds of efforts are underway in terms of, promoting manufacturing education besides this one?
So SME Prime is certainly our signature program. That's where the emphasis is for us as a foundation, both financially and from a human resource standpoint. But we do have 2 other programs that we manage here. Our mission as the philanthropic arm of SME, Matt, is to inspire, prepare, and support the next generation of manufacturing and engineering talent. And we have 3 programs that align with each one of those pillars. SME Prime aligning with our preparation pillar. But from an inspiration standpoint, we host a student summit event series where the foundation is responsible for hosting roughly 300 high school students at SME conferences and trade shows around the country. In fact, we're going to be in Chicago next month for Rapid Plus TCT, which is the largest additive manufacturing conference in North America. We'll be hosting 300 students from the Chicago public school area. We do student summits around the country, a little bit in Canada, but primarily in the United States. We host roughly 2,000 students a year at our student summits. We've got Prime, as I mentioned, as part of our preparation pillar. From a support standpoint, we have a scholarship program that's been in existence now for almost 40 years. It's probably what the foundation is best known for. Annually, we award close to $2 million to high school students and current undergraduate students, graduate students pursuing post-secondary education in manufacturing or engineering. Last year was a record year for us. We had almost 2,000 applicants, awarded almost 800 scholarships. There's a real big push internally right now around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and ensuring that our scholarships are being awarded to underrepresented classes, primarily females and minorities. So a lot of good things happening within the foundation.